shenanigans, truth, lies, shenanigans, shenanigans.
Welcome to another episode of the Truth, Lies, Shenanigans podcast. I am Nio Nyx, and in this episode, we're talking about memories and instincts. My co-host today, the lovely Gianni Storm, and our rock star, Robbie Rock.
Hey.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, everybody.
Good morning, everybody. So are you guys readers? Do you guys read?
Yes.
My wife
Yes,
is
I
an
read.
avid reader. I read graphic novels and I read articles online, short stories.
I'm like you, Robbie. I'm not a big reader, but I'm curious. So what's the most memorable book? If you have read any books, Robbie, what's the most memorable book you've ever read, and what stuck with you about it?
In my early adolescence, I fell in love with Jack London's works, Call of the Wild, Buck. Yeah,
okay, I know.
It really resonated with me. It was that free spirit. It was adventure. It was loyalty. There were so many great things about it. There were trials and tribulations. Those stories resonated with me.
So, Jen?
I would say for me, it's recently been more of like the Power of One, the self-help kind of books, becoming supernatural, like kind of metaphysical. I just like things like that. I think they're interesting. But growing up, like James Patterson and
really?
I like reading in general. The only genre of book I don't like is complete fiction, like just complete fiction. I'd rather watch a show.
I'm like Rob. I'm not a huge reader. I get bored with books really easily, so I start reading. I just get bored with it and then just give up on it. And so I'm not a big reader. But when I was younger, there were a few books. I really liked Orson Scott Card, Isaac Asimov. I really liked those sci-fi books. And one of the authors was Piers Anthony. And you may not know him, but he did a lot of fantasy books. And there was one book in particular. It was part of an Incarnations of Immortality series. And it was called On a Pale Horse. And it really influenced my thoughts on death and how I see death and afterlife. Incarnations of Immortality, so there was death, time, the fates, etc. That particular book, On a Pale Horse, was particularly about death. And it was really influential in my thoughts, particularly on God and religion and things like that. And it really helped me to open my mind a little bit to see things just a little bit differently and consider
outside of the norm.
Ideas. So that was my book as a kid.
I used to work at a library, guys, as a library assistant.
Interesting. Like, how old were you?
18, 19 for a year. Yeah, it was awesome. It was amazing. I loved it.
My mom made me volunteer at the library when I was like 8, 9. I was in elementary school. She made me volunteer. I might have been maybe I was 10. Maybe I was 10. I might have been in 6th grade. Maybe I was 10 or so.
My mom was
books
a
changes
librarian
lives.
Before my mom became a teacher, she was a librarian.
Nice.
See? Very sweet.
And we don't read, Rob.
Yeah.
That's funny. All right, let's go ahead and get into this topic that I think fans of Assassin's Creed, the game, might relate to.
Yeah.
So in the game, the main character can access their ancestors' memories through their DNA. And then through the course of the game, you relive those historical adventures and you play through it. But it got me thinking, what if it's true? Could our memories actually be passed down through DNA to our children? Like our specific memories, like some of the trauma that I had as a kid, or maybe, I got hit by a bus and survived. Does that trauma pass down to my children? I was thinking about my dog, and I had a dog where I raised right out of the womb. And it definitely did instinctive dog things,
Yes.
And there's a lot of animals like birds, lizards, snakes. They have the ability to survive without parents. So the parents just kind of leave the nest and they survive. How do they figure it out? Kind of like, I'm like, I don't get it. How do they know what to do if they've never learned it from anyone? How do they just know? And then we as humans, we have instincts that we just kind of can't explain. So where's it all coming from?
Yeah.
When I looked it up, there's like a ton of studies looking into the idea that maybe, just maybe, we're carrying around bits and pieces of ancestors' memories They call it genetic memory. Now, there was a lot of, I also saw a lot of researchers saying that this was all bullshit, but saying there's no way particularly human beings are passing down memories like, what I ate yesterday, or, kissing my wife goodbye just a minute ago, that those memories, just no way that's passing down through your DNA, right? So I'm asking you and our audience, and don't forget, you can comment on Pods Network and chat with us now. So go ahead and do that and let us know what you think. But I'm saying that memories can be inherited through DNA by our children. And I'm asking, is this truth, lies, or shenanigans? I'm going to start with Robbie on this one next.
Okay. I don't think that actual memories can be passed through DNA. I think that that's that's neither here nor there for me. Now, to say that your genetic stock has aptitudes or predispositions towards certain things, perhaps. I'm thinking like athleticism and physical traits that can be passed on. So endurance, agility, strength, but intuitive skills, like there's some stuff that I don't really get, and I'll be honest with you about that. Like as far as instinctual behaviors, how newborns know how to suckle for milk, how a newborn chimpanzee instinctively clings to their mother's fur, how Komodo dragon hatchlings instinctively run for piles of feces, knowing that Komodo dragons don't eat feces, and they know to take to the trees until they get to a certain size.
What?
Instinct is crazy. It absolutely is. Humans have fear responses that are very natural. Fear of snakes and spiders. So, hard-coded survival instincts, I don't necessarily consider to be racial memories. Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's not.
What are they?
Survival tools, man. And
But how are they passed down?
But from where?
Where do they come from? Let's say we all started from an amoeba.
Speciation, dude.
An amoeba.
You can't relegate it back to the amoeba's memories because of
not the amoeba.
I'm just saying.
We're not going back.
I'm just
Wait
saying,
a minute.
I'm saying let's assume we all started from an amoeba in the primordial soup. How did we develop at birth these understandings, this knowledge, what to do, how to do it, where to go? How do we develop that if it's not memories that are being passed down? Like the previous generation,
because it's a survival mechanism. When there is a genetic change that yields an advantage to this new strain, then they have a greater propensity to survive and thrive. And that's what happens with each level of speciation. It's just one small adaptation that makes it more apt to survive. So if the amoeba just had the ability to float around with the currents, and then the next generation has a cilia that helps it propel itself, well, it's going to have access to more food. Therefore, it's going to propagate more and it's going to outbid the other one. But then if there's another species change in the original amoeba,
so you're just saying these hard-coded instinctual things are just passed down by natural selection. So like, for example, I have these two dogs. One is like a really scared ass dog, and the other dog is like the loving, he jumps all over you, he doesn't care. You drop something right next to him, he looks at you like, what? And so and the other one is flown off somewhere and hidden under the sofa or something.
Scary.
And of course, the one that runs and hides under the sofa is more likely to have survived, right, in a natural environment because he's scared. So maybe you're saying that particular type of instinct has just kind of generated over time. I still question how it passes down.
The argument really is dependent on the definition to me of memory, because if we're going to be specific about it and we're talking about like my personal experiences, would I be able to pass that down to my daughter? Originally, I did think, no, that's impossible. But then I did some research and I saw that even with like the Holocaust survivors, now because of their trauma, their children now have this
They've
certain
inherited.
hormone, a stress hormone,
Mhm.
inherited.
But that's epigenetic inheritance. So there are studies that have been done. So the changes in gene expression, that can be changed from one generation down to the next. So if we're talking about the Holocaust generation, they were severely deprived of nutrition. So huge malnutrition. The psychological impact of what they went through was absolutely reeling, unparalleled. So this can absolutely change the DNA
Generation.
methylation patterns in the offspring. So basically, when the
Okay.
woman is pregnant, the chemical makeup is different. So it will absolutely have an impact on the next generation.
Just to explain to the audience, there are studies on Holocaust survivors and their offspring, and they demonstrated that the impact of trauma across generations showed epigenetic inheritance.
Yes.
They suggest that extreme stress can lead to genetic changes, which affects
Yeah.
offspring's development and their response to stress. It also, as part of that research, there was a specific gene that they looked at. It's called the FKBP5 gene. And what they found was there were alterations in Holocaust survivors and their descendants specific to that gene, which implied that parental trauma can influence children's genetic makeup, particularly regarding stress responses and psychological issues. So,
like you were saying
I
with
think
your
it's
dogs, just
possible.
having a fear response just by
That's what I was
virtue of
thinking.
by virtue of what your predecessors were exposed to, who got the opportunity
who
to
survived?
propagate. Exactly.
Who survived? The people that were most scared went in hiding, or whatever they did to survive is what survived. That was the gene that survived into.
Exactly.
I agree with you, Robbie. That kind of speaks to what you were saying.
Mhm.
You guys are talking about more so like natural selection and inheriting physical things.
I mean,
But
he's saying
Neo,
that as
you
an
were speaking.
explanation, that's possibly an
Oh, okay.
explanation to why we're
To why?
seeing, seeing it passed down into next generations, or seeing these
Mhm.
traits passed down into next generations where they know what to
Right.
do, right? Because that's the people who survived. It was in their genetic makeup already through some adaptation or mutation.
And that's that through
What about
millions of
the
years of adaptation, we end up with very
over time?
complex behaviors. We end up with some very complex fabrications. Just physically and organically, the human eye is incredible. But that change happened over time, from the amoeba to
Yeah.
this. Hey, man.
But I mean, that's kind of almost assuming evolution, no?
It is.
No, it's establishing that evolution is a proven concept, that it happened.
So it's not
I
assuming.
mean,
He's saying it did happen.
Not assuming it. We're saying it happened.
He's saying it did happen.
evolution happened, but I mean, it's arguable. I feel like it's arguable to believe that evolution, as a human, we originated from an amoeba to a monkey, as some say, to a human. So
So you're saying it's a
I
stretch.
don't believe that.
Now,
It's
I
a
am
stretch, yeah.
I'm one of those people who believed in the possibility. This is just a possibility that there was assisted mutations, assisted adaptations. But that's a whole
Yeah.
different episode.
Mhm. That's a whole different episode for sure.
Everybody needs a creator. I mean, but that's a whole different episode, like you said. But I wanted to touch on the specific. I love Rob. I wanted to touch on the specific memory because I remember there was a case of a young boy who was having, and it was out of, I believe, Arkansas or some Midwest United States place. There was a young boy, and there was actually a few cases where these young kids were having very specific memories of a life that they never had. They were about 4 or 5 years old, and they were having memories of, basically it goes along the lines of reincarnation, like some of the Hindu and other faiths believe. So is that similar as well? Would you consider that a passed on? Because that could have been his ancestor, or that could have been him, and it was essentially
So
a memory. How does he remember that?
I
It's
would say that
too
the parents are
factual.
charlatans, and they have fed that child information and weaned them to
That's
believe a certain
arguable.
thing, or the child has a vivid imagination, or the child has some kind of brain aneurysm or something not quite right.
No,
That
Rob said a brain aneurysm.
Seriously, man.
Rob, he does not. A brain aneurysm? That is so
The
funny.
kid might have brain cancer. He might have a tumor. He might have a growth. Seriously, no.
So he pretended he was an old Western cowboy?
I'm not ruling it out. I would have an
wouldn't
easier
rule it
time
out.
believing those things than saying that he's tapping into specific memories of ancestors. Because
Reincarnation, yeah.
in my adolescence, oh man, did I ever want to be Caesar Augustus or Marcus Aurelius or someone fantastical and say, yeah, I was that person in a former life. Okay, great.
Yeah. But what if he's having dreams and memories that are specific to that time and event, verbatim,
Dreams.
and memories?
I liked what you
What's
put
the
in it.
difference? What's the difference?
She's like, and memories.
And false memories are very common. False memories are
I mean, that's
a very
true.
common
That's true,
thing in
Rob.
our species. So
That's true.
to me, it's just it's a three-ring circus, because
I
at the
think-
end of the day,
Okay.
someone's trying to profit from it.
As a kid, I grew up and my mother used to always say I was reincarnated and I used to be someone else. I started to believe that crap.
Oh, no.
And yeah, she used to say it all the time. And she said I was reincarnated as somebody else. And because I guess as a kid, I would say stuff like, I remember when I did this, I remember when I did that. And, you
Oh,
know.
wow.
And she also
Mhm.
felt that kids can
Remember.
better their previous lives. I don't know if I subscribe to that theory of reincarnation. I'm one of those people where I think when we die that we do change forms. I don't believe our consciousness as is passes on in any way, shape, or form. But I believe we can pass on as energy or particles or whatever it is.
Chemically and atomically.
Exactly.
You break down and you become part
Something
of your
else.
ecosystem, the universe.
Yes. And I believe that. Again, the consciousness as it exists does not pass on. And I don't know that memories can pass on in the same way. That's just what I believe. It just doesn't make sense to me that it's possible.
Like memories can't be transmitted.
I'm not saying that memories can't be transmitted. I'm saying that my personal memories are not necessarily passed on to another human in somebody else's womb.
Mhm.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. But
I agree.
But to this point of like, and kind of going back to what Rob B was saying, and to this point of instincts and passing on down to other generations, there was another study that was done in 2014 called the Diaz-Resler study, and it was on mice. And what they did is they subjected the mice, one generation of mice, to this cherry blossom or some weird smell, cherry blossom smell or scent. And what they would do is they would shock them every time they came close to that particular smell or scent. And then what they did was, the next generation of mice, they would do the same thing. And then the next generation of mice, they do the same thing. And then one of the later generations, all they had to do was have the smell. And then the mice would run away from that particular smell. So they inherited the fear of that particular smell.
That's evil.
But the question is, are they passing down the memory of the smell as bad? Because later generations that were never subjected to the scent were scared of the scent within, like, I think they said 4 or 5 generations.
Or kind of like instinctively, anything that's alive, if we smell fire, we're going.
Yeah, but where did
We're
that develop from?
conditioned.
Because initially they were not
Conditioning.
scared of that cherry blossom smell.
Yeah.
Right. And then even subsequent generations developed a fear of particularly that smell. So I don't know. That one kind of
Interesting.
sold me a little bit because I was on the fence. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense, right? How can you pass down memories? But in some ways it makes sense because our DNA changes over time. If I was making babies at 20, it's not going to be the same DNA that I'm making at 40 or 50.
Right.
Well, criminologists would tell you that, yes, it is the same DNA.
Well, there are minute differences in the DNA. There are genetic differences because you're making copies of copies, right? So
Yeah.
in your cells, you're just making copies of copies eventually, and that's how cancers develop. And also why we look so different when we get older, because over time there are minute changes, and we
Changes, little.
haven't really gone down to the. We know DNA from the gene level, but we don't know anything beyond that. And as we know, with the world of small, there's always something smaller
Hard. Yeah.
that we just haven't tapped into. So is it possible that we are passing down some more smaller information in our genes? I think it's possible.
That's a good point, Nio. I like that argument.
I say it's possible that we are passing down information we're just not aware of, or that we haven't seen yet, because we hadn't seen DNA till what 60s, 50s? When did we find out DNA?
Yeah.
So prior to that we had no knowledge of, of DNA. At some point, we didn't even know that, bacteria existed. So now we know that something smaller exists. Atoms is another example. There's still something smaller. Yep. And then what's within atoms? We just don't know what exists smaller than that. So what I'm saying is there could be little tidbits of information that we're just not privy to, that we are passing down within our DNA. It's possible, because it would explain
That's true.
these instincts. I mean, what else really honestly explains instincts? I understand natural selection to some degree.
Yeah.
To some degree, natural selection makes sense. But really, when it comes down to a bird literally being able to know exactly what to do, from flying out of its nest to going to eat a worm, I mean, there has to be some type of knowledge that we're passing down.
It knows exactly what to do. It knows exactly, we all know from that standpoint exactly what to do without thinking about it.
Yep.
And it kind of goes along the lines where people say not all of your thoughts are your own. I think it's interesting. I think that you can't, and this is my opinion, even despite what we've talked about, I think you can't have specific personal memories passed down to generations. I think it has to be something that is a traumatic event, and it has to be something that is like a collective event. I feel like that could pass down memories, but that's just from what I've seen and researched.
I might be leaning your way, but I don't know. I'm still
on the fence.
I'm still on the fence. But one last question. Do you think that memories, like Gianni talked about reincarnation, do you think that like these experiences of deja vu or these memories of the past are the DNA, or where does it come from? Because there are some things where it has been proven to align with reality. Or is it just something that maybe we heard or we happened to see on TV that is stuck in our subconscious and we're just kind of reliving it? What do you guys think about?
False memories. I'm going back to false memories, and then I'm going to our subconscious being programmed by everything in our environment, and that the dreams that you do remember are only a fraction of what you dream. And how many times have you played out conversations, scripted them before you've had them with people, especially difficult conversations? You prime yourself.
That's true.
Your brain is an amazing thing. We don't fully understand it. So for me, deja vu is absolutely your subconscious going, hey, yeah, this looks familiar because we did this before. You kind of go,
in the dream world.
How can this seem familiar to me? Like, what? Okay.
That's always been a difficult, because even with friends I have today, they totally believe in reincarnation. They totally believe that there's things that we can't explain, we will never explain. There's deities and entities bigger than us. So they believe in all of that. I've always been a little bit more practical because there's other answers. And I think there's some answers that make more sense. Like dreams, we can't like truly research dreams, because how can you? Besides putting somebody up and then scanning their waves and stuff like that, it's really hard. Yeah, so I think that there's some parts of us that we still have yet to discover.
But yeah, no,
Star Trek hasn't developed the technology. No, I'm kidding.
A Jedi will read your dreams for you. It's fine.
It's fine.
That's the previous episode. Check last week's episode for that conversation.
Yeah.
All right. So memories can be inherited through DNA by our children. Is this truth, lies, or shenanigans? What do you guys think?
I think this is shenanigans.
Shenanigans.
Yeah.
So you're on the fence.
I'm on the fence. I think it's
So
shenanigans.
some of it's true, but you're just not sure it's fully true.
Yeah.
I'm still going to sit in the false camp because I don't believe that specific memories can be passed down from one person to the next. As far as behavioral traits, that would be
Learned behavior.
another interesting conversation to have because
Yeah.
just evolution and pattern development and over millions of years. So that would be eye-opening
Yeah.
as well. But yeah, specific memories, no.
I'm in the true camp.
So no.
I think it's true. I'm leaning a little more towards shenanigans, being on the fence a little bit. But I think
Yeah.
that it's quite possible that we are able to pass down specific memories from ourselves to our children. It's just we don't know the mechanics of it, is what I think.
Right.
I think we just don't know how that works. I think in time, we're going to figure it out. I think Assassin's Creed will be real life soon.
Hey,
As soon as we can download
After-
consciousness, as soon as we can digitize it and re-upload it, then yeah,
they're real close.
All right. Well, thank you both. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this exploration into genetic memories. Before you head out, make sure you hit that subscribe button. And be sure to check out our previous episodes on Pods Network, PODZnetwork.com. Great new feature. You can now leave comments. Tell us your thoughts about the episode. As always, I've got to thank my co-hosts, Robbie, Gianni Storm, but I've also got to thank you for listening to our shenanigans.
TLSLiveShow.